Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode here of my series of the best prog albums of all time, according to very specific parameters. This is the fourth episode in the series, so I recommend, if you haven't yet, to check out parts 1, 2, and 3. I've already gone through numbers 25 all the way up to 11, so now I'm into the top 10, which I'm excited to get into today. Just as my quick preamble, I've taken the list from Prog Archives, which I think is a great resource for user reviews and people's opinions about prog music and prog albums. They have a top 100 prog albums list, which I've utilized, filtered it just to do one album per artist, so it's the top album on the list from any given artist, and got to 25 albums that way, and now I'm ranking them according to what I think. So it's kind of a collaboration a little bit. It's a combination of my own personal tastes and how I'd rank these, and also the albums that the prog community at large agrees are some of the best albums of progressive rock. And I do take into account the importance of the album in the progressive rock scene at large. But I've decided one album per artist because I thought it would give me more artists to be able to talk about, and it would be able to showcase a lot more different genres and different types of music within progressive rock. So I thought that would be a cool approach. And we're getting into the top 10. There's a lot of great records here. All of these could be in contention for the best prog album. Don't get caught up with what numbers above what other number. It was really hard to rank these. And really, this group of 5 could be shuffled in any sort of way, and I wouldn't be too mad at the order and ranking. So but this is what I decided. This was kind of my first instinct, and so I'm just going to go with it. So I'm going to start at number 10. I'm going to move over slightly and put the albums next to my head here, and we'll get started. So let's get into it. All right, first at number 10, I've got Renaissance and their album Scheherazade and Other Stories. This is from 1975. This is Symphonic Prog from the UK. It's number 34 on the Prog Archives list. Also on the Prog Archives list is Ashes Are Burning from 1973, which is at number 74 on the list. Another excellent record from them. But Scheherazade is a really special record and somewhat unique, I think, in the prog community. Renaissance is a band I came to a little bit later after I discovered a lot of classic prog bands. They're not a band that was really on my dad's radar, who showed me progressive rock. So it was a fun discovery to go through their discography after the fact, after I'd already discovered, Yes and Genesis and Jethro Tull and Gentle Giant and all these great classic bands. And it was like this hidden treasure that just I was able to uncover and really see the brilliance of what they had on offer. And Annie Haslam is just a fantastic vocalist. She is kind of a step above a lot of other singers in the genre, so that really gives them an edge. And I think another big piece of their sound is just the very classical nature. They don't really do anything very heavy, very rock oriented. It's very symphonic, very classically inspired, but they do have moments where things can get a little bit more rock driven, and they add a little bit of a folk rock sort of aesthetic as well. So it's a great blend of these different styles that comes to the table here. And I think this album really showcases all that the band is able to do in a very grand, epic fashion, especially the big title track, Scheherazade, which is this big epic story that's based upon the 1001 Nights, originally conceived by Michael Dunford as kind of a score for a theatrical musical, but converted into this just giant progressive rock piece. And it goes through so many different things throughout its runtime. It's really fun to listen to. There's some great instrumental overture type sections. There's some great vocal moments. It's a fantastic story, and that's really what the band excels at, is storytelling. Annie Haslam is definitely a storyteller at her heart, and that's why she's such a fantastic vocalist, because not only does she have the virtuosity and just the technical ability with her voice, but she's able to utilize it to tell these wonderful stories throughout the record, and none more realized throughout their catalog than on Song of Scheherazade, which has this just big epic giant conclusion that is just beautiful. But the first side of the album has some fantastic pieces from the band as well. Trip to the Fair has always been one of my favorites. It has this kind of haunting atmosphere because it's about this kind of strange trip on, I believe, on a date that Annie Haslam went on that was embellished upon. She was taken to this fair, but it was empty and abandoned, and kind of had a creepy vibe to it. But it's a really cool piece with some very classical inspiration. I like how some of the keyboards are more in that kind of carnival fair type feel to just add to the theme of the song. So they're really playing into this storytelling aspect and letting the music tell a lot of aspects of the story in really unique, interesting ways. The Vultures Fly High is one of their more high-octane rocking tracks, I think, in their catalog, and Ocean Gypsy is just a beautiful ballad that's just really sumptuous and gorgeous, and a way to just really take in Annie Haslam's vocals. So all in all, just a beautiful album, one of their highlights of their career. They were just at the peak of their powers here, and even though their sound is maybe a bit softer and warmer than some of the heavier rock stuff that you might get from other prog bands, it's just so beautiful and orchestral. They even bring an orchestra on the Scheherazade track, which really adds another layer and dimension. And I just love it. This is a classic and just something that I totally adore in the progressive rock collection that I have. At number 9, I have Camel and their album Mirage. This is from 1974, Symphonic Prog from the UK. Once again, it's number 15 on Prog Archives list, so quite high. They also have a couple other albums on the top 100 list. They have Moon Madness from 1976, just right underneath Mirage, so they're kind of neck and neck on the rankings at number 16. And The Snow Goose, which is their beautiful instrumental concept record from 1975 at number 43 on the list. But Mirage takes the cake here as the top album of their discography according to Prog Archives. And it's hard to argue. It's just a fantastic album. And kind of like what I was saying about Renaissance, I think part of their appeal is that they're very pastoral and very laid back in their style. They definitely have like more upbeat moments certainly throughout the record, and they introduce a lot of jazzy elements and things like that. But I think what they're really well known for is this more pastoral feel, these really long extended guitar passages from Andy Latimer, and some beautiful flute work as well on this record that I absolutely love. And it just, every track hits and is beautiful to behold. I don't think the vocals are especially impressive on this record, but I don't think it's really about that. They don't detract, they're good, but I think Camel is primarily kind of instrumentally focused, and the instrumental side of this record is just totally fantastic. Starts with Free Fall, which is an excellent opener, getting you right into their world view. I love Super Twister, just kind of a fun, cool flute-driven work that's a lot of fun to listen to. Then you get the Nimrod L, the Procession, the White Rider, which takes, of course, influence from Lord of the Rings, very Tolkien-inspired track that goes through many different sections, and I think it's just a beautiful, expressive work that just has a lot of great musical cues to it. Some great jazzy moments, just some beautiful, lovely guitar work and soloing, great Moog soloing. So fantastic. Then we get into Earthrise, a great lengthy instrumental with some jazzy undertones, and ends with Lady Fantasy, which many people consider kind of their classic track. Moody intro, melodic vocals, fantasy lyrics, a brazen keyboard solo, dramatic tempo changes, and some great glistening guitar leads from Latimer. So a great classic band that probably doesn't get enough recognition, even though I think now they're kind of considered one of the greats in the genre. They're probably not in the like top 6 prog bands, but they're right on the periphery of it. And I just really love their sound. It's very laid back, very groovy, but there's always something interesting keeping your attention. They're very close to kind of the Canterbury scene in my mind because of their kind of pastoral feel, the kind of folky English aesthetic, and also the focus on flute work in various sections of the track. But they have their own style and feel to them as well. And this is really their prime period. These 3 albums, Mirage, Snow Goose, and Moon Madness, are just a great trilogy of excellent progressive rock that should be heard by every prog fan. So definitely a classic record and deserving in the top 10 of this list. Next at number 8, I have PFM, Premiata Forneria Marconi. This is their 1972 album Per un Amico. This is Italian progressive rock. Fantastic. This is number 18 on Prog Archives list. Storia di un Minuto, their previous album, I believe, is at number 31 on Prog Archives list. Two excellent albums from 1972 that this band produced. But Per un Amico was kind of the revelation of the albums that I checked out on this list. Most of the albums I was previously familiar with before this project even started. You know, of course, I've been a long time progressive rock fan, but I'll admit embarrassingly that I haven't checked out a lot of international prog bands. I check out mostly English lyric-based prog bands, mostly UK and US based prog bands from the 70s. So this was just such a pleasant surprise. This along with Harmonium, which was on a previous episode on my list. But this is just a wonderful record that showcases all that was great in the classic era of prog and definitely deserves its masterpiece status towards the top of this list. I like their sound quite a bit because it brings together a lot of the influences that I love throughout progressive rock. You definitely get some Gentle Giant undertones, especially in the second track, Generali, just incredible quirkiness and eclectic nature, and they're willing to work in kind of complex time signatures and do these different kind of quirky instrumentation. You get a lot of, violin work throughout the piece. You get some classical inspiration, you get some flute work. It's just they really put everything into their music. Sometimes they have a pastoral, almost Genesis style feel, like on their Il Banchetto track, one of the longest tracks on the record, which starts out with almost like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young style like vocals that are just so beautiful and sumptuous. They have really excellent Italian vocals that complement all of this before they get into more proggier sections, some Banks-like keys and Hackett-like guitar work, and then into some kind of minier Gentle Giant style keyboard work, and even inspirations from maybe a Keith Emerson and how they really have this extended like keyboard classical tinge section. I love the opening track, Pina un po', which opens the album in a very classical style, kind of a Baroque feel with lyre and Baroque classical instrumentation before it morphs into kind of more of an early Crimson, Jethro Tull type feel. It goes through so many different things in its runtime that it's just a fantastic exploration to behold. It's a very short album, but they really pack a lot into this like 34-minute runtime to bring about one of the classics of the genre. I love this album to death. I initially had it a lot lower than this on my list, but the more I listened to it, the more I realized that this is like a forgotten classic for me at least, and definitely deserving of a top 10 slot here, and is one of the best of the progressive rock genre, definitely one of the best in this kind of Italian prog scene, but I think even beyond that. To me, it's the best Italian prog album that I've heard, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of really great Italian prog records, but this one really captured me and is fascinating, and I like how they're just uncompromising, they're doing what they want to do, and hop and weave and bob through a lot of different styles throughout each different track, but they make it all work seamlessly together and bring this kind of Italian spirit, and it just works for me. It's a great mixing pot of incredible progressive rock influences that they're bringing to the table here, but bringing their own unique stamp that makes it feel special. And I can't help but love this. So that's number 8 on my list. Next at number 7, I've got Gentle Giant's In a Glass House. This is from 1973, Eclectic Prog from the UK. This is number 26 on the Prog Archives list. There's several albums from Gentle Giant on the top 100 list. Acquiring the Taste is at number 61. Octopus from 1972 is at number 33. Power and the Glory from 1974 is at number 42. And Freehand from 1975 is at number 51. So their catalog is really highly regarded, even though their highest placement doesn't quite get it to the top tier of works. But I adore this album. I think it's no surprise to people who've watched my channel that this would be this high. I am a Gentle Giant super fan. They're one of my favorite classic prog bands. I love their quirky instrumentation. I love how they're able to be supremely complex in their arrangements and their songwriting, but make it sound really palatable. You know, they make it sound very accessible and approachable, at least for me. Maybe because I grew up with it. This is one of my dad's favorite all-time bands, so I grew up listening to Gentle Giant. But to me, even though when you try to peel the layers and look beneath the hood and try to see what they're doing, you realize that they're doing really interesting, complex work. But to me, it just sounds really fun and rocking, and they're surprisingly adept at like different musical styles and different instruments, and they're just total virtuosos. But it doesn't turn into a cacophonous mess like you might expect. It's very grounded in melody, and every song has a very direct purpose to it, and I just really love their sound. It's unique to them. There's not any other band that really sounds like them. Of course, there's bands that have come after that have been heavily influenced by their sound and have that as a piece of their musical framework, but no one really has that core Gentle Giant sound in this same way. And that's what I truly love about them, is they have their own lane that they occupy, and they're unapologetic about the music that they produce. And this album in particular, In a Glass House, which honestly isn't even really my favorite Gentle Giant album, but it's still at the top of their catalog. To me, every album from about Octopus to Freehand, that section of albums is just perfection. I think every album there is masterpiece. And I know a lot of people also love Three Friends, and I also really love Interview. So they just have a really strong catalog. But this album in particular is deserving of its spot on this list. Every track is really interesting and unique in its own fashion. I love the glass-breaking sound effects that start in the album, giving it kind of a cohesive theme, so to speak. The Runaway is just a great high-octane kind of rocking track. Inmate's Lullaby is such a unique, kind of strange little track about this person going crazy, but in this kind of lullaby nursery rhyme style. Really fantastic. Way of Life is just another fun high octane rocker from the band. Experience kind of captures the two essences of the group to me. It starts out with this more minstrel kind of medieval inspired feel, before it morphs into more of a heavier sound, driven by Derek Schulman. Fantastic. A Reunion is just a short, beautiful little track. And then we get In a Glass House, which is the kind of masterwork that brings it all together, that ends the album in a fantastic way. Even has tinges of almost like a southern rock, kind of bluegrass feel, with some really interesting fiddle work on that track. So they really run the gamut throughout the track list of some really funky, fun, high-octane moments, some really laid-back, beautiful sections that bring this kind of ballad feel. Then they have these quirky moments that are eclectic and almost avant-garde in their own style. And it sounds like it might not work. It might feel like a mess because there's so much going on, but it all works in tandem with each other and makes this a stellar album that's definitely deserving of a high spot on this list. I almost considered it bumping it into my top 5. Probably from personal preference, it would be making that top 5, but I felt like I had to be true to the Prog Archives list a little bit and try to be a bit more objective when crafting this list together, but still, fantastic record. Absolutely adore it. And I know they're kind of an acquired taste. I've had many people in the comment section say they just don't get this band, which is totally fair and fine. But for me, they hit really hard and just work totally from my musical perspective. I love putting the puzzles together. I love their sound, and it just excites me every time. And it's cool and multi-layered, so there's always stuff to unpack and uncover the more you listen, which is really a great experience as a listener. So there you have it. Number 7, In a Glass House, a fantastic record. Highly recommended. One of my favorite prog albums ever. And now we move into number 6, our highest spot for today. This is Rush and their album Hemispheres from 1978. Heavy prog from Canada, number 17 on the Prog Archives list. Also on Prog Archives, we've got A Farewell to Kings, from 1977 at number 28, Permanent Waves from 1980 at number 56, and very close to Hemispheres, but Hemispheres just edges it out. Moving Pictures from 1981 is at number 19 on the Prog Archives list. And this was tough, deciding between what would be ahead between Gentle Giant and Rush. You can consider these almost like a tie for me for 6th place, because they're both excellent records, but very different from each other as well. But Rush is another band that I kind of came into a little bit later. Wasn't one of the foundational prog bands that got me into the genre, but upon discovering their catalog, I just really have fallen in love with their sound. I love the core trio of musicians, and how they're able to create such a great full sound with just the three of them is really what always has fascinated me about them. Where a lot of prog bands, they kind of expand their lineup, they kind of have extra members to bring additional instruments and additional elements, but Rush has always stayed this trio. They're one of the most consistent lineups in the rock world at large. You've got Alex Lifeson on guitars, you've got Geddy Lee on bass and vocals, obviously, and Neil Peart on drums, and they're all virtuosos on their respective instruments. They're all fantastic, and I love how they each are equally represented throughout the album. There's no clear spotlight or star in the group, that they all are equals. And I think that really creates for one of the best lineups, not just in prog, but in rock music in general. And every album that they produced through the 70s and into the early 80s is just totally fantastic, and some of my favorite music of all time. And I think Hemispheres is a fair choice to be kind of their representative of their prog period. And it's a fantastic record that starts with an 18-minute epic, the Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, which is a great continuation from the epic On a Farewell to Kings. I almost wish that this was like a double album, where the first disc was Farewell to Kings, the second disc was Hemispheres, because if that was the case, this would be one of the best double albums of all time. I think these two albums work really well together, and this kind of shows why, because it takes an epic from A Farewell to Kings and expands upon it in this record. Takes the traveler into different spaces and goes through this kind of Greek mythology infused story in a sci-fi setting, which is really fantastic, and showcases a lot of interesting psychological ideas. And that's another great part of Rush, is that, yeah, the music sounds cool and they're doing a lot of interesting virtuoso stuff, but the lyrics are also really thoughtfully crafted, and they explore themes in sci-fi and fantasy settings, but they're very deep themes and very thought-provoking, and they showcase that throughout this whole record. On the second side, we've got a couple of shorter tracks, Circumstances and The Trees, which are both just great short rockers that are a lot of fun. The Trees in particular is a really classic track, which has a really interesting philosophical idea to it. A great analogy to really uncover and unpack as you listen to it. And La Via Strangiato is really where they get their chance to shine as instrumentalists. One of the most impressive and well-regarded instrumentals in rock music. And I love all the different sections and how it moves to so many different things and doesn't stay too long in one particular lane before shifting, but it all feels cohesive at the same time. Like there's definitely a unifying thread that keeps this all together and makes for a fantastic listening experience. So it's a short record once again. Most of the albums today are fairly short records, but they pack a punch and showcase bands at the prime of their powers, just doing what they do best and delivering a great small dose of music that you can continually listen to and continue to unpack layers of great sound, and are just fantastic pieces of art to continue to cherish as you continue through with your musical collecting and listening. So definitely a 5-star record, definitely deserving of this list, just barely not quite making it into the top 5. And that's where we'll end the episode today. So there you have it. That's my items number 10 through 6 of 5 incredible albums, all highly recommended, all classics of the genre, all what I would consider like 5-star masterpieces in the prog rock world. Let me know in the comments how you feel about these records, if you might have made different choices. Remember, these aren't necessarily my favorite records. They're just the ones that ranked highest for these artists on Prog Archives, so I wanted to use that as a tool to represent what I think the community at large considers some of the best and most consistent albums in progressive rock. So let me know in the comments and tell me your guesses, perhaps, if you want to, for what's going to be in the top 5. I think it's probably going to be pretty obvious. There's no real curveballs. It's exactly what you'd expect the top 5 prog albums to look like, but it'll probably be easy to guess what artists will be considered, but maybe the game is figuring out which album is the choice within that episode. Of course, you can see if you go to Prog Archives list what their top albums are, but if you want to guess and you're unsure, that could be a fun approach as well. So there we have it. Thank you guys for joining me for today. Hopefully you appreciated this episode, and hopefully you'll continue with me for the grand finale next Sunday. It's going to be really fun. So thank you guys, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future episode. Enjoy the music, everybody.